Then I said there were two things that you could do to make this sound exactly like Joe Rogan's microphone. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it, okay? I told you in another video that you don't want Joe Rogan's microphone, and then went on to explain how you could spend way less money on the Shure SM57, the one you're listening to right now. You're hearing this with no adjustments, no EQ, no nothing. This is straight out of the microphone. I said you could get this thing for $99. Then I said there were two things that you could do to make this sound exactly like Joe Rogan's microphone. Number one was to get this windscreen. Number two was to do some equalization, some EQ. If you have to skip something, just don't do the EQ. Nobody will know. And if they do, you can fix it later. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it, okay? I'm a Mac guy, so you're going to see me do this mostly on a Mac, but it doesn't matter. It works on Windows, works on Mac. All you have to have is a piece of software that has a parametric EQ available. And I'll show you what to do about Audacity, which doesn't. So I'll show you what to do, but I'm going to begin this in GarageBand. Simple program that every Mac owner probably has already loaded on there anyway. The principles that I'm talking about and the settings we're going to look at work on any legitimate piece of audio or video editing software. So I'll show you what it looks like in Adobe Premiere. I'll show you what it looks like in Final Cut Pro. It looks the same way in iMovie. I'll show you several of these. I'm not going to train you on every product, but you'll get the idea. And you really will be able to make these settings changes in 5 minutes or less, even if you're a total newbie. I also want to express gratitude and give a shout out to Julian Krause. I will link his video in the description, but he went through the time and trouble to really, really carefully and meticulously isolate the frequencies that we're going to be dealing with. And that has saved me a lot of time and will be a great boon to all of you. So be sure to watch his video. Let's get started. I recorded some audio before I started this video, just so you have a little bit to listen to and refer to. And I'll play a chunk of it right now so you can tell what I'm talking about. Watch what happens with the analyzer. See where my voice sits. The harder Tom tried to fasten his mind on his book, the more his ideas wandered. So at last, with a sigh and a yawn, he gave it up. All right, I have a fairly deep voice. You'll notice that the lowest notes, the lowest parts of my voice, were about 100 hertz. Everything else below that, human voices aren't going to go there anyway, unless they're in some contest for who can sing the lowest. 20 is as low as a human can hear. 20,000 is roughly as high as a human can hear. And we're just going to make the changes to the quality of this microphone to make them match the SM7B. So I'm going to do this in Final Cut Pro just for fun. Thanks again to Julian Krause. We know what frequencies we need to influence and to what degree. So the first frequency that we're going to adjust is 100 hertz. On the SM7B, the one that Joe Rogan uses, those lower pitches are just a little bit warmer, a little bit fuller than on this SM57. It wasn't really made to do that. So we're going to take 100 hertz, that's this low note, and we're going to bump it up a little bit. The other thing that we're going to do is adjust what's called the Q. Now, parametric equalizer, which is what this is, allows you to adjust how wide this effect is going to go. So we're going to set this to a Q, that's what they call the width, a Q of 1.5. So notice that it begins sort of ramping up with a very subtle effect at about 60 hertz. Then we're 2 decibels louder. Decibels are how we measure volume. 2 decibels louder at 100 hertz. Oop, I've got 102. I should probably learn to type, huh? At 100 hertz, we're 2 decibels higher, and then it kind of tapers off by the time you get to 200 hertz. You musicians will be interested to know that every time you double the number, that's 1 octave. 100, 200, 400, 800. Those are just octaves. So that's our first adjustment. We're going to do a total of 4. Remember, I said you could do this in less than 5 minutes. So if I'll stop talking, it'll be less than 5 minutes. The second one we want to adjust is at 4.2 kilohertz. Kilo means 1,000. 4.2 thousand, it's 4,200. So I could do it this way. I could try and figure out where that is and fiddle around and wiggle around with my finger until I get it there. But that's a whole lot of messing around. So I'm just going to double click and type 4200. And we're going to diminish the amount of that frequency by 3 decibels. So I'm just going to say, oops, there. We're going to say -3. All right, so the higher frequency stuff, the high pitches, this area right in here, 4200, is kind of where a lot of the sibilants live. Sibilants are sounds like the letter S. It's a sibilant. It's a hissy kind of sound with a lot of high frequency information in it. And we're going to drop that down by about 3 decibels. Incidentally, 3 decibels is about the amount that you have to adjust something up or down in volume before a human can actually perceive the difference. Kind of interesting. So we can adjust something by 2 decibels down here. You and I won't really hear a change in volume, although it is changing the amount of energy that's coming at that frequency. So we're going to choose a third one, and this one is at 6400. There it is. And at 6400 hertz, we're going to drop it by 5 decibels. So we're actually dropping down the amount of high frequency sound, but we're going to change the Q on this one to 5. So now notice we have this kind of funky little notch thing going on. That's good. That's what we want, because that little thing matches what the SM7B does. So these charts that we're looking at, this frequency response that we're seeing, is the same as if you ran what's called white noise. All of the pitches from as low as we can hear to as high as we can hear, if you ran them all at the same volume through a microphone at the same time, how would it respond? That's what this is showing us. If that doesn't make sense, you don't have to worry about it, because I told you you could do this in 5 minutes. Last but not least, at 10.5 kilohertz or 10,500 hertz, we are going to drop the signal again by 4 decibels, and we want our Q to be 5. Bigger numbers make smaller widths. Smaller numbers make larger widths. Those of you who are photographers will see the same thing with aperture, right? Small number means a large aperture. Big number means a small aperture. Those of you who aren't photographers can completely ignore what I just said because you don't care. All right, so we're done. We've made 4 adjustments. At 100 hertz, we are plus 2 dB with a Q of 1.5. At 4200 hertz, we are minus 3 decibels with a Q of, I typed that wrong, a Q of 1. At 6400 hertz, we are at minus 5 decibels with a Q of 5. And at 10,500 hertz, we're at minus 4 decibels with a Q of 5. This one right here, we can make sure it's off. We don't want it or need it. All right, that's it. We can turn this off too. If I were you, I might take a screenshot of what you're saying right now, because that way you can remember what these numbers are supposed to be. What if you don't want to take the time to do this? What if you have a voice that sounds perfectly lovely without making any changes? Don't make the changes. This microphone is so versatile. It really is, I think, the most versatile mic on the planet, and it will sound good on most everything. If you want to smooth out the top end a little bit, if you want it to sound just like Joe Rogan's mic, knock yourself out. You can do this. That's what it looks like in GarageBand. That's what it looks like in Premiere. By the way, to get there in Premiere Pro, you've got to make sure that you're in the thing that says Audio Track Mixer. Okay, you go to the Audio Track Mixer. You have to open this little tiny, see that tiny button? See how they're trying to hide from you all this goodness? You open that goodness, you select one of these drop downs, and you choose under Filter and EQ, you choose Parametric Equalizer. That's what this is. Boom, done. By the way, for those of you who use Final Cut, you will have to go over here to the effects menu and make sure you have installed Audio Units Parametric EQ. If you've installed that, you can use it. The audio units thing is a thing that Apple made universal. So this looks the same in GarageBand or in Logic Pro or in Final Cut. It's the same. Those of you on Windows, if you're using, SoundForge or Cubase or something, any decent audio program will have parametric EQ available. Now to the Audacity crowd. Audacity had the audacity to not include a parametric EQ. There are a couple of things you can do. You can search online for a plugin. A plugin is a piece of software that sort of plugs in to a program like Audacity and adds that functionality, and find a parametric EQ and make the changes that I've shown you. If you don't have the time, money, or energy to do that, and you want to find the fastest way to sort of approximate this, go up to Effects, choose EQ and Filters, and choose the one called Filter Curve EQ. Oops, I got to select my audio first. There, I'm a professional. Go to Effects, EQ, and Filters, Filter Curve EQ. There we go. In Audacity, you can just make little handles. These are little tiny dots that you make simply by clicking on this line. And so I can go in here and click and just make adjustments and try to somehow approximate what we saw in the other program. Go to here to 100 hertz, and boost it by about 2 decibels, and kind of ramp it to 60 and ramp it to 200. And that looks a lot like what we did here for about 60 to 200. So that'll probably work. So you can do that in Audacity. You can use this filter curve EQ and make it sort of behave almost as though it were a parametric EQ. So those are your options. In any decent, professional-ish editing program, whether it be an audio or a video program, you can select a parametric EQ, make the changes that I've just shown you, and you're in fantastic shape. This $99 microphone, plus the $15 windscreen, plus the EQ settings that you can easily do in 5 minutes, virtually indistinguishable from the $500 SM7B. And you did it for $114. Just do what I've recommended, and you will look and sound like a professional, assuming you have something professional to say. It's my goal to rescue the world, one microphone, one EQ, one bit of audio knowledge at a time. Why? Because I'm the sound advice guy. We'll talk again.